Our next presenter is Mary Blight, who will be talking to us about geolocating historical panoramas of the Goldfields. Academic supervisor on this project is André, who is in the audience over here. Tanya Edwards from the Western Australian Museum was the industry supervisor, who is online, and I was also involved in this project. And people may be aware that we've been working on historical panoramas related projects since 2015. It was one of our very first intern projects supported by the State Library, so it might be said that this project has got legs. It's been run for a very long time and has been very successful, and very pleased to see Mary's contribution to the project. So over to you, Mary.
Hello everyone. My name's Mary Blight, and as you just heard, I've been doing the geolocating the historical panoramas of the Goldfields project, and my supervisors are André Brett, Andrew Woods and Tanya Edwards. And I would also like to thank the Western Australian Museum for sponsoring this project. First, I'd like to start with an acknowledgement of country. So I begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, Whadjuk Noongar people, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders peoples here today. I would also like to acknowledge that this research concerns Marlinga Gooley, Mudawonga and Wangkatha country, and I would also like to pay my respects to all traditional owners of the Goldfields region, past, present and emerging. I would also like to do a statement of positionality. So I have an Irish Catholic and settler background. My Irish grandfather came out here and started teaching at Peak Hill in 1903. And I spent 3 years during my childhood living in Kalgoorlie. The photograph here is of my parents in front of the Broad Arrow schoolhouse where my grandfather taught, and that's two of my youngest siblings as well. I had a lovely time growing up in Kalgoorlie. So the Goldfields Panorama project concerns the Goldfields in Western Australia, and where gold was discovered by Paddy Hannan in 1893. Of course, the discovery of gold had a huge impact on Wangkatha people, and I would like to acknowledge that. It accelerated the impact of colonisation hugely as thousands of people rushed towards the goldfields when gold was discovered. This project itself is very similar to the Historical Panoramas project of Perth and Fremantle, and basically my remit was to find as many panoramas as possible to see if there could be another panorama project involving the Goldfields. So the methods I used was to first of all try and find panoramas. So I searched the WA Museum and State Library of WA archives. When I found panoramas, I would go and photograph them and then stitch them in Photoshop. I've been ordering high resolution images, and I would also try and geolocate the panoramas that have been found. That's a photo of me taking a photo of a panorama in the Leah Cohen reading room at the State Library WA. So the results of this project were that the project started out with 25 panoramas already identified. At the end there are 48. Of those panoramas, I have now sourced 15 high resolution images, so that work is ongoing. And I have geolocated 32 panoramas, and so that work is also ongoing. So I also mapped the panoramas onto a Google Earth map, and the zoomed out one shows the extent of the panoramas found, as the Goldfields, as you can see, is quite an extensive area. With the work, I analysed the panoramas that have been found in their locations, and I found that 29 of the panoramas located in what is the super pit today in Kalgoorlie. So this spreadsheet I've just done an analysis. We've numbered the panoramas from 1 to 48. I suppose I should go back to this one here. So this is all the panoramas. I've identified them by the author that took the photography, took the panorama, where the panoramas are found, and whether I found a high-res image, geolocated them, and put them on the Google Earth map. But back to the 29 panoramas in the super pit. So this is now a lost world. So the super pit mines, I needed to map where the super pit is today and where the mines were. So I found a map in the State Library archives from 1899 of where all the mines were in the richest part of the Golden Mile, as it's called, which is the Boulder area. And I superimposed that on a Google map and had to do some violence to it in Corel Draw, stretch it and warp it a bit to try and make it actually match the streets in Boulder and work out where the curve of the old railway line was. But I've managed to do that, and as you can see, I made that a transparent layer of the layer with the mines' names on it, so you can see where the mines were in the super pit. Now this is what the super pit looks like today, and you can still see the curve of the railway line there, and that's how it was. So there are a lot of mines that have now disappeared. So it was a disappearing world, a world that arose quickly and vanished. So another thing that came out of the research was I came across 4 panoramas in a row that were taken of the same view. And in the right-hand corner of this view is what's known as the Boulder Block, which was one of the richest commercial areas in Western Australia at one period. The owners of the premises on the Boulder Block negotiated with the mining leaseholders all around them to have the rights to the land on top while they dug underneath for gold. And so we've got 4 panoramas here that were taken. This is one's in 1899 by Norman Adair. This one's probably around 1900 by Norman Adair. Then there's this one. We don't have a high resolution image yet for it. That's probably shortly after 1900, and I'm not sure who took it. It may have been Melvin Vaniman. And then this one by John Joseph Dwyer would have been later on. And so it shows how that area changed over in the early 1900s. So now I'm going to look at the authors of these panoramas, because a lot of the panoramas that I found, basically 4 photographers seem to have done a lot of the work. So the first one is Norman Adair, who's a bit of a mystery man. He arrived in WA from Queensland, but by 1911 he appears in Melbourne and doesn't appear to be taking any more panoramas, but overall in this collection 14 of the photos can be attributed to him. So I do think Norman Adair is probably someone that would be good if someone did some more research on him. He did join up in World War I, so I don't know if he became injured in World War I and was unable to take photographs after that, but he kind of disappears. He does photographs he takes a lot of photographs in Western Australia and then moves on. So the second one is Melvin Vaniman, who was a real adventurer. He was American, he was a balloonist. He unfortunately died in a balloon accident in 1912. But he very briefly visited Australia and came to WA in 1904. So any Vaniman image can be pretty much dated as happening in 1904. This is him with his cat, Kiddo. So then there's John Joseph Dwyer. Now he was born probably over east in the eastern Goldfields. Goldfields over east, and he came to Kalgoorlie in 1896. His parents were Irish. He ran a photography business in Kalgoorlie from the 1890s to 1917, where a fellow photographer, Mackay, took over his photographic studios. So WA Museum has extensive holdings of the Dwyer Mackay photographic collection, and I looked through that with their very kind permission to find panoramas. 4 of the photos in this collection can be attributed to him. He did, as part of his business, take a lot of photos of Aboriginal people, and in particular sold one called Kalgoorlie Bell, mainly to missionary societies. So he made money out of photographing and selling photos of Aboriginal people. So when if you're doing anything with him, you probably need to be aware of these cultural sensitivities around his work. And then we've got Reg Lambert, who seems like a real character. He came along later on. He grew up in the Goldfields. He saw his first camera in a Coolgardie shop in 1906. Got inspired to start taking photos. Ran a photography business in the southwest of Western Australia, 1920s, 1930s, and 8 of the photographs in this collection can be attributed to him. So now to discuss a bit of the geolocation work. This is a Reg Lambert panorama, and it's set in Boulder. It has some people, they seem to have just left a car, they're going down to the movie cinema. You can see the Boulder Town Hall in the distance, and there's actually a house here that has some interesting little spikes on its roof. And this is a Google Map photo of that street. There's the cinema still there, there's the town hall, and if you look further back, that house with the spikes on it is still there. So it was very easy to geolocate that image, one of the easier ones to do. So basically this project, as I said before, it started out with 25 panoramas. A 10-week search has shown that there are at least 48 panoramas, and we may find some more. 9 panoramas were found in the 8th week, probably by Norman Adair. I'm sorry, 2 of them have Norman's name on them. And so the project itself is not complete, but it certainly had a good start. I found 15 high-resolution images, but work will need to be done further to get images from State Library and WA Museum. And 32 panoramas have been geolocated, but that work is also ongoing. I've done a final report on it, so whoever takes over this project will hopefully be well based, have a lot of research to work on and be able to continue on the project. This is quite an interesting picture here that Reg Lambert took of gold fossicas out at Lake Ballard in 1933. I'm still waiting for a high resolution image of that one. And so this future work, you have to continue obtaining high resolution scans of the panoramas, finish the geolocation. There's a number of panoramas that I couldn't obtain that the Eastern Goldfields Historical Society holds, so that work remains to be done. And the idea was to take modern day panoramas of each location as part of the final display of the panoramas, and later work will involve creating a panoramic display in Pano Tour Pro or some other similar software. Okay, thank you very much, and has anyone got any questions?